Hey guys, so my name is Miyoko and I am here to discuss the controversy regarding Flame Monroe and her interview on Breakfast Club radio show and how it exposes the disgusting hypocrisy within the trans community and also the gay community as well. So just a little bit of information about me. I have been living as a transsexual woman for the last almost 2 decades now. And so I have experienced quite a lot. And within the last 5 to 6 years, I've noticed quite some drastic changes to the community. To be honest, not all of them have been majorly positive, but I think our biggest accomplishments are the fact that our representation in the entertainment industry is growing rapidly, and that's amazing. We have had slightly improved access to healthcare and trans people being able to make appropriate changes to our government issued identification. So that's all pretty important. But let's get to the grimy stuff. So the beginning of the trans movement was actually pretty great. You know, the conversation was a lot more grounded and respectable, and people were slowly starting to open their minds to the idea that you can transition from one gender to another. That concept wasn't very difficult to understand, although of course we're going to have some bigoted people who are just ignorant and do not want to accept or be open-minded about anything. There are people like that for everything, so that's not really a big deal. However, what made this more difficult than it needs to be is the infiltration of the non-binary movement. It caused people to be more resistant to acceptance, and they force people to acknowledge them by random pronouns, and they resort to a violent expression of victimhood if anyone refuses to submit to their unsubstantiated ideals. And to make things worse, there seems to be a significant amount of transsexuals who are in support of these non-binary trans people, and even go as far as to identifying with the illogical fantasy that gender is a spectrum and that the gender binary doesn't exist and that gender is a social construct. Yikes. This particular situation is the foundation of the biggest hypocrisy in the trans community. Now, concerning Flame's interview with the Breakfast Club, there's been an absolute uproar. I mean, people are up in arms about how she chose to represent the trans community, but here's the thing. Flame was not representing the trans community. Flame was representing herself, and it just so happened to be in such a way that people really understood and resonated with what she was saying. If you even look at the comments under the video, like 90% of them were positive. 90% of all of the comments that I read were like, people praising her and just being super supportive, which is you just don't see that on a Breakfast Club radio show video, especially regarding something as controversial as transsexualism or, being gay or just trans or whatever. However, she made a lot of extremely valid points. So why isn't her experience valid to the one community where everyone's experience is valid? Now, the way that I identify as a transsexual woman has evolved over the years. I used to believe what the majority of trans people believe today, that, trans women are women and that there is a negligible difference between a transsexual woman and a biological female. However, I've recently taken a huge interest in the science behind what makes me the way that I am. And as a result, I feel less confused, more confident, and a little less dysphoric about my body and my identity. So when Flame says that women do not have penises, I find that easily agreeable. Every single trans woman was born biologically male and will die a biological male. Just because biological females and transsexual women may have a lot of intersecting experiences does not make us the same thing at all. A biological cisgender female does not know what it's like to be a transsexual woman any more than a transsexual woman knows what it's like to be biologically female. They are inherently different experiences, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's what makes transsexualism so fucking beautiful. Flame also made a very harsh point about trans women being female impersonators. I mean, ugh. This even rubbed me the wrong way, but she isn't entirely wrong. I mean, let's look at it this way. Even if we were born in a gender neutral society where the social construct of gender did not exist, there would still be gender rules because female bodies do one thing and male bodies do another thing. And there's no way around that because physiology and hormones by which it is regulated is not a social construct. It is a scientific fact. In our present day society, we identify with being more than just feminine. We identify as women. And who is the first women we model ourselves after? Our mothers. Then it's our sisters. Then it's our aunts and female classmates and famous women in the media. Whether we like it or not, the biological female is the blueprint for our transition from point A to point B. Females are the embodiment of the feminine divine. There is nothing more inherently feminine than the biological female. So we admire them. We admire females because we feel like that should have been me. That could have been my life. And because it isn't, I am dysphoric. That is why it is a mental disorder, because it causes us distress. Anyway, we do model ourselves after the women in our lives, but the term that Flame used, impersonate, it implies that our lives are a mockery, that it's a performance of some sort or an act, which is why that statement rubbed me the wrong way, because it's not. But at the end of the day, it's all semantics, so who really gives a fuck? It doesn't change anything. Now, let's talk about why this situation makes the trans community look so fucking hypocritical. India Moore, the beautiful trans actor who starred in a massively successful FX show, Pose, identifies as a non-binary person. I mean, she presents, they present as female, but they want people to address they, them. Oh my God. Okay. They present as female, but they want people to address them with they, them pronouns. The problem with presenting as a woman and expecting people to address you by they, them pronouns is that they, them is quote unquote neutral, while your presentation is not, which is a rather confusing experience. They, them can mean him or her or both. So that doesn't make it any different from presenting as a woman and wishing to be addressed as he or she, like Flame does. No one seems to have a problem with India Moore presenting as female, identifying as non-binary, using they, them pronouns, but everyone seems to have a problem with Flame Monroe using he, she pronouns and claim that her pronouns are going to set the trans community back and confuse the rest of the world, as if the non-binary movement did not confuse the fuck out of all of us already enough. I personally do not understand how Flame can be comfortable with being addressed by male pronouns, but I also don't understand how India Moore can be comfortable with being addressed by they, them pronouns. He, she is just as neutral as they, them, because they, them means both or one of the two. And Flame Monroe says you can address her as both or one of the two. But somehow, India Moore's pronouns are considered progressive, while Flame's pronouns are considered problematic. The community wanted to include non-binary trans people so badly. Well, you should have been careful about what you wished for, because here you fucking have it in its boundless entirety. I mean, isn't this what the new generation of trans people are fighting for? The inclusion of everybody and the freedom to identify however you want? By definition, it seems that Flame Monroe is gender fluid, which falls perfectly under the infamous transgender umbrella that these neo-trans folks are fighting so hard to maintain, which has always been harmful to the transsexual community, for the simple reason that non-binary people want to destroy the gender binary that transsexual people wish to exist in. This is why the transgender umbrella is highly problematic. There are way too many conflicting issues as a result of two different groups of people who want two completely different things sharing the same identity. Now, I understand that things that I have said may have offended people, but I'm not interested in your emotions. I'm just interested in the facts and the reality of the situation. I totally support Flame Monroe, and I really feel disgusted that the trans community does not support her. It's just extremely hypocritical to support someone who identifies as they, them, but presents as a woman, and not support somebody who identifies as he or she and presents as a woman when they are both basically the same concepts. I don't know, but I'm just so sick and tired of the gender politics. It has really become so tiresome, and if I could, I would just jump off the cliff that is the transgender community, because I am fucking tired. I am so tired of it, so over it. I just, like, I can't. I don't think anybody can, to be quite honest. But, you know, here we are doing the monkey dance. Anyway, thanks for listening. And if you have any opinions or ideas that you want to share, do so intelligently, because I won't tolerate anything else. And like I said, I'm not interested in your emotions. I'm only interested in the facts and the reality of the situation. So with that being said, have a good night, and don't let the bed bugs bite.